Welcome to the Safe Money Retirement Show with certified financial fiduciary Tim Wood.
This is all about helping people. That is why I am so passionate about this, because it's literally getting up every day and helping people plan for the rest of their lives. Make a plan, because I promise you're going to sleep better.
Tim is a retirement and income planning expert, best-selling author, and the founder of SafeMoneyRetirement.com. Tim focuses on wealth management, retirement income, tax and long-term care planning, and so much more.
Let's sit down. Let's make sure we have got a holistic plan. We're not just looking at one thing.
And now, the Safe Money Retirement Show with Tim Wood.
And we welcome you into this week's edition of the Safe Money Retirement Show. Alongside Tim Wood, he's the founder and president of Safe Money Retirement. He's also a certified financial fiduciary. My name is Kevin McAlpin, and of course, we appreciate you being with us here on the program, and we have a lot to get to on the show here this week. Coming up in just a little while, Tim and I are going to tell you how to keep your focus on the long term, even when financial news tends to get a little noisy. Plus, we'll tell you how Tim can help his clients think outside the box when it comes to planning for their retirement. And later on, if you've ever wondered how much of your retirement income should be coming from guaranteed sources, you'll want to stay tuned. We've got that plus and a whole lot more. But first things first, we say hello to the star of the show, the man of the hour, and my buddy Tim Wood. Tim, as always, it's great to be with you. Hope you're doing well, my friend.
I am doing very well. Allergies are kicking my tail a little bit right now, so y'all will hear that in my voice. I apologize for that, people. But yeah, I'm doing well, enjoying football season, enjoying the fall. Yeah, this is my favorite time of year. October is my favorite month.
Yeah, it really is. It's a great time of year, and obviously we know that the calendar year, it's a reminder, Tim, as the leaves are falling, the calendar year is quickly coming to a close. So before we really dive into the show here today, for those listening that might be thinking, you know what, I've got plenty of time. I've got all of October, November, December to get that end-of-year financial checkup done. This is a great opportunity now over the next, 4, 5, 6 weeks. Get on your calendar. Stay ahead of that end-of-season rush, isn't it?
Absolutely. With RMDs, with anything, yeah, this is a great time because, as everyone knows, from Thanksgiving to the end of the year, you're going to blink about 12 times, and that's going to happen. So, I mean, realistically, yeah, between now and sort of getting into about the middle of November is the sweet spot. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it'd be a great time to sit down. Things have slowed down just a little bit. I've got more calendar openings than normal. We can sit down with people and figure out, are you on the right track? What about your RMDs? How do we need to, make sure everything is on target? Yeah, you're right. This would be a great time for that.
If you'd like to schedule that complimentary, no-obligation consultation, visit SafeMoneyRetirement.com. Again, the website is SafeMoneyRetirement.com. And Tim, while the calendar still has some openings, boy, you've been a busy guy here lately. Congratulations in order as you have a new designation, Retirement Income Certified Professional. This is a big deal, and I know it's something you've been working on for a long time, so congratulations, my friend.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, it was a long journey. It was a year and a half's worth of study with the American College. But what I learned was amazing, and the information that I gathered that now I can share with clients and all these complex cases and how it works, and especially what the tax consequences are for complex things like, okay, well, I've got a 401k and part of the money is before tax and part of it's after tax, and I've also got a TSP and I've also got an IRA. What's going to happen when I do taxes? Well, I now know the order of everything and how it works and all that kind of stuff. That was kind of what this was, to help someone really make sure they have got the income that they need. Again, this whole certification, Retirement Income Certified Professional. Exactly what it sounds like. It is the certification out there that basically says you have gone through all of these college courses, well over 100 hours, and essentially everything that there is to do, pensions, Social Security. For example, in the actual course itself, there was 3 sections. In the first section, it was how to create a plan, key retirement decisions, strategies, those kind of things. The second section was Social Security and pensions and choosing the right annuities and how that would work, and other sources of income, retirement portfolios, all that kind of stuff. And then the last section kind of wrapped everything up and was talking about all the different taxes, because that's one of the biggest things people need to realize in retirement. You know, people call me all the time and say, oh, I've got $500,000 in an IRA. Oh, great. Okay. and they think they've got 500,000. They don't. That's a tax bomb. Well, what's your tax rate? Well, I'm at 22%. Well, guess what? Let's do some division and figure out how much you really have, because the government's got the rest of it. So, yeah, that whole third section was about how do things work tax-wise, and then the different health insurance options for someone retiring. How do you fund long-term care? It even went into retirement housing and ethical issues. So it was broad, and it was a lot of work, and I am glad it is over. I'm glad I've got it. I'm glad I did it. But yeah, man, it was a lot.
I would say you probably earned 3, maybe 4 fingers worth of bourbon next time you open up a bottle. Just my opinion, just one man's opinion. You may differ, but it's a lot of work you put into.
That sounds good to me.
You put a lot of work into this, and obviously this is a big deal for our listeners, for your clients. This really, kind of sets you apart from, those big box firms and other, places folks could go to when it comes to planning for their retirement. Let me ask you this though: you go through this; it's a year and a half. You mentioned how much time and how much you put into this. What was the biggest takeaway for you going through this entire process?
Well, I would probably, certainly all of the knowledge I gathered. Of course, all of that knowledge is great. Now, a lot of it, if not most of it, was review from stuff I've learned over the years. But still, that's never a bad thing. And getting a refresher on here are the laws in 2025. That's always great. But one of the probably the biggest things is, my clients are students. That's one of the reasons we do these radio shows, these podcasts, all of these things online. That's why I do the webinars. That's why I do the seminars. That's why I wrote the book. I could keep going on and on. Everything I do is teaching. And for a minute, I had to be back in the student chair. And it kind of gave me that perspective of, I've got to make sure that when I am talking to someone and they've got one of those complex cases, let's say they've got 3 401ks, and one of them was from this employer and it's all pre-tax, but this one was from this other employer and it was part pre-tax and part not. And, and this stuff just, it can seem like too much, knowing that how to figure that out. It's not simple, but once you understand it, it is relatively simple. But knowing but being able to express that to people in terms that they can understand and not use industry speak and not use, here's No, I'll sit down and show you. I can show you the formulas. Let's sit down and say, okay, here's what you've got. Okay, let's put everything down. Boom, there it is. All right, let's write it out, and I'll show you the formulas, and we'll sit there and we'll figure it out, and we'll say, okay, here's exactly what you're going to have to do, and then we can make a plan. Again, I know I go back and beat this dead horse every single episode, but it's all about making a plan and making sure that you can make the right plan for you specifically, and since income really is king in retirement. There's a whole study on my website, you've heard me talk about it before, about what makes people happiest in retirement, and overwhelmingly it's income. Because that you're taken care of, and if we set it up, you've got even more income. I set up a plan this year, or this week, for a gentleman, and he actually wanted to have his income increase for the next 10 years. So we actually did a total of 10 plans, what he needed to start it immediately, and then 9 smaller plans that he's going to turn on in year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, to give him that bump he wants every single year, guaranteed. And he knows what those amounts are going to be starting right now, guaranteed contractually, because we already know what those numbers are. So just being able to put all that together, but really being in the seat of having to be a student again and having that perspective, really, I thought that was very valuable, and I think it will affect the way that everything I do moving forward with my seminars and with this show and with webinars and with everything. I think it will affect the way that everything is done moving forward.
Tim Woods put over a year and a half into earning this designation, Retirement Income Certified Professional. And like he says each and every week on the show, it's all about creating that plan when it comes to getting ready for your retirement. You don't get a do-over. You do this thing once. Last thing you want to do is retire, and then 3 or 4 years down the road, realize you haven't had a plan in place and you got to go back to work. It's the last thing you want to do, folks. So if you'd like to sit down with Tim and the team at Safe Money Retirement, keep this number handy, folks. 800-913-SAFE. Again, that number is 800-913-7233. Or you can always visit the website anytime. It's safemoneyretirement.com. Again, the website safemoneyretirement.com. And Tim, to go back to what you were just sort of mentioning, becoming a student once again, we know retirement rules are constantly changing. They're constantly evolving. We've talked about some of the things that may have felt like they were rules of thumb that are outdated. And I'm sure a big part of this too is really, continuing that education. Technology evolves. The world continues to evolve. We know there's been a lot of mixed messages out of Washington and Wall Street. So much has changed, even just in this calendar year, that getting that education certainly important when it comes to dealing with your clients.
Absolutely. And another big part of being an RICP, or Retirement Income Certified Professional, is all the additional things even after you get that designation. I mean, I have got extra stuff I've got to do every single year just to make sure I am still up to date on everything. And that's going to be ongoing for as long as I have it. So yeah, absolutely, because things are changing all the time. I mean, one of the biggest changes we've had lately is Secure 2.0, but there are more changes coming. And if some of the things that we've heard President Trump talk about actually come into play, there could be some other really major things coming down the road.
We obviously know one of the things that has changed as well. We know the Fed met recently, lowered interest rates by 1/4 point. We'll dive more into what that means for our listeners coming up in just a little while. But Tim, 30, 60 seconds, just the overview of what it means for folks. Again, we know that there's not a lot of people still have pensions these days, but for folks who are lucky enough to still have a pension here in 2025, what are some of the things that should be top of mind, knowing that that the Fed did lower things at least a little bit here in their most recent meeting?
The biggest thing is this. Yeah, I mean, of course, the Fed lowering the rate, we all know that affects things at the banks. That affects growth plans. I mean, that affects a lot of things. But what people don't realize is the lump sum payouts in a pension work conversely from the Fed prime rate. So as the prime goes down, like you said, they lowered it by 1/4, the lump sum payments and pensions actually goes up. So even if it was something that you had made a plan and I'm going to just go ahead and take the pension payment because the lump sum's not going to be as much, well, as the rates go down, I mean, it only went down 1/4 point now, but moving forward, as it continues to drop, every time it drops, that lump sum amount in your pension is going to go up. So it would make sense to speak to someone that can do a search and make sure that the pension is going to be the right move for you. Or would it make more sense to move it to another plan that might pay you more, give a death benefit, and maybe even have a benefit for long-term care where it can actually pay you a little more?
Bottom line is that retirement, and we talk about it quite often on this show as well, you got to have a plan, but plans are not set it and forget it, right? Plans have to be flexible. Plans have to be adapt and evolved the older we get, right?
Absolutely. Well, and especially as quickly as things are going now. I mean, with technology and, AI and everything in our lives, that whether we want to have them influence us or not, they are. So yes, making sure that the plan that you made in 2010 for the rest of your life, well, there's a really good chance it needs to be addressed. So yeah, it's always a good time to make sure of that.
Obviously, your plans want to be adjusted to keep up with the headlines. There's been a lot going on here in 2025. If you put a plan together years ago and you haven't revisited it, maybe you haven't updated it, maybe it's beneficiaries you need to take a look at, that and so much more. Let Tim Wood and the team at Safe Money Retirement help. Also, folks, if you're listening today and you're looking for growth without that fear of market downturns, Tim Wood and the team at Safe Money Retirement, they are here to help. Obviously, he's going to help you safeguard your investments while still participating in market growth opportunities. He'll also give you the peace of mind to know your hard-earned retirement is protected against market losses, again, while still having a chance to enjoy and benefit from market gains. You want to learn more? You want to get on Tim's calendar? We mentioned it's a great time of the year. Also, we're going to throw in a copy of his book, also entitled Safe Money Retirement as well. Let's do that for our first 5 callers today. 800-913-SAFE. Again, that's 800-913-SAFE. That's 7233, or online at safemoneyretirement.com. Again, safemoneyretirement.com. All right, we'll step aside for a quick break, but don't go anywhere. We have much more of the Safe Money Retirement Show with Tim Wood coming up right after this.
You're driving along when you realize...
Oh, I've got to get over. Oh my gosh, sorry.
You didn't see him, did you? He was in your blind spot. You can also have a blind spot when it comes to your retirement. That's where Tim Wood and the team at Safe Money Retirement comes in. They know about a little blind spot called taxes. Social Security, your pension, your investment, all can be taxable. Look, you don't want to end up saying,
will I be writing huge checks to the government when I retire?
don't get blindsided by taxes. Make sure your retirement has a tax plan with one call to Tim Wood and Safe Money Retirement. 800-919-SAFE. That's 800-919-7233. Or online at safemoneyretirement.com.
And we welcome you back into this week's edition of the Safe Money Retirement Show. Alongside Tim Wood, he's the founder, president, certified financial fiduciary, and retirement income certified professional with Safe Money Retirement. My name's Kevin McAlpin. We hope you're having a wonderful day. And of course, we thank you so much for being with us here on the show. The number to reach Tim and his team at Safe Money Retirement is 800-913-SAFE. Again, that number, 800-913-7233. Or online anytime. It's safemoneyretirement.com. That's safemoneyretirement.com. So, Tim, I don't know about you, but I spend most of my evenings right before bed, 30, 40 minutes. I just find myself scrolling aimlessly on Instagram, watching reels, looking at mindless stuff, just trying to find a way to kind of decompress from the rest of the day. What about you? Are you a TV in bed guy? Are you a social media guy? Or are you able to just shut it all off and go right to sleep?
No, we actually, I don't know if you've ever watched The Big Bang Theory.
Yeah.
But my wife and I think we're literally, it's going to make us sound like we've got a problem, but I think we're on our 6th time through the entire series. And that's our mindless, we just put on Sheldon and Leonard and everybody. And that's right before bed. When we get in bed, we'll watch an episode or two of that. And it's so mindless. And we've seen it so many times, you don't really need to pay attention. And then when one of us reaches for the remote, that's the end of the night. So that's pretty much every night.
That's usually me with Seinfeld and or Beavis and Butthead. One of the two of those, okay. I can watch those if I just need to get away from everything going on in the world. Those are my two escapes. And 30 years later, Seinfeld's still relevant. And of course, Beavis and Butthead making new episodes. Can you believe it? Like I was watching them when I was 10.
I've seen a couple. Yes.
They're pretty good. They're pretty good. If you're a fan, well, that show has not skipped a beat. It really is incredible. But Tim, the reason I bring it up is I saw this post on Instagram recently, and I actually found this really fascinating. Talking about products that will certainly be familiar for our listeners, but they're popular because initially they were used the wrong way. Listen to this. Listerine, originally invented not as mouthwash, but as a disinfectant back in the 1920s. Meanwhile, Play-Doh, which my 4-year-old gets all over my living room, actually originally invented to clean wallpaper in the 1930s. And WD-40, believe it or not, was invented to prevent rust on nuclear missiles. All three of those blew my mind. But the reason I bring it up, tying it into what you do every day, Tim, sometimes retirement plans can come from thinking outside of the box. So let me ask you, what are some mistakes you've seen over the years for folks who think that there's only really one way to plan for retirement?
There's a few. And the challenge is that a lot of people that have been planning for retirement since the 80s or 90s, there was one school of thought back then. Well, that school of thought has changed dramatically, and a lot of the assumptions from back there have been proven that is not the case right now. Back then, the 4% rule, yes, it absolutely would have worked forever. But now there are actually 2 periods where it would not have worked. So that's not necessarily 100% safe anymore. So there's kind of some of the obvious things, but there's a few things that come to mind. Number one is people think they're going to spend less in retirement. I talk about this in my book. If you don't already have a copy of my book, get a copy. We'll send you one. You need to learn what this book talks about, but that's one of the things. And people always think, well, I'm going to spend less, so they'll put me in a lower tax bracket, so I don't need as much money. Not the case. I mean, unless you're literally planning on sitting around, and sitting is the new smoking, so I do not recommend it, you're not. I mean, and I've got a lot of clients, believe it or not, that actually wind up spending more, at least in those first 5, 10, 15, the go-go years we talk about, Kevin, they spend more. So that's one of the things that I really have to, get people to change their mindset on is that it's not necessarily going to be less, because then after you get to the point where you're not going anymore and you don't feel like it, well, you don't feel like it for a reason. You're probably spending more in healthcare costs. So, yeah, you know what I mean? There's not really a point in time where it's going to dip really low like people think. Also, people think Social Security will be enough. But what people don't understand is Social Security, it was only designed to replace 40% of your income. Research it, 40%. So if you were making 100,000, now you're telling me you're going to live on 40? If you were making, do the math, it can get a lot worse than that. So it's almost never enough. You need something else. And if you have got a pot of money that you're just pulling from along with Social Security and praying to God that the market doesn't go down, that's an awfully big risk to take in retirement, because if the market crashes, remember that market math, if it goes down 30%, you got to have a 42 to 43% gain to get back to where you were. Do the market, if it goes down 50%, you need 100% gain. There are people that are just now recovering from 08 and 09 because they went down so much. Anyway, Social Security is not going to be enough. You need to make a plan for more income. Other couple things real quick. I can work as long as I want. I just had a client week before last that was an air traffic controller. Well, apparently when you're an air traffic controller, I can't remember, I believe it was 56, 57, there was some age, he had to quit. They won't let you work past that, period. And your current employer, maybe they will, maybe they won't. Also got a friend of my wife and mine that from down in Florida had worked for a big company that everybody listening would know the company for many years as a manager. Well, they came up, I mean, really, and now this is coming from him, so it's one-sided, but they came up with a really stupid reason to get rid of him because he was making so much money. He was getting the pension. He was getting the 401k. It was costing the company a ton, where they can bring in someone that just graduated college, pay them a third, and they don't have hardly any of the benefits they have to deal with. So, yeah, but let's make a plan, because what happens? Because anything could happen to almost any company. And then lastly, well, I've got a conservative portfolio, and that's going to be fine. Well, that could be fine, and that could be best. But also what could be best is let's go ahead and get your income taken care of, and then what's left, you don't necessarily have to be so conservative with. You can rock and roll with that because you know your income is taken care of. So as soon as we get your income taken care of, and we know that's done, and we know that we've got some inflation buster plans in there so your income can increase in the future, okay, now we don't have to be so conservative with the rest of the portfolio. Now you can tell your guy, hey, let's rock and roll with that. Let's look at some things that might blow up in AI or in whatever. It gives you a lot more flexibility and a chance to have more growth because you've taken care of that income.
If you'd like to learn more, maybe you feel like retirement planning is one size fits all, folks. It's not paint by numbers. What works for you might not work for the person next door. And if you feel like maybe there's some retirement myths that you've been following over the years, they may actually be limiting your opportunities when you get into retirement. Don't delay. Don't kick this can down the road any further, folks. Let Tim Wood and the team at Safe Money Retirement show you what they have at their disposal. And of course, if you have a plan that's been in place for years, remember, this is something you want to constantly be revisiting, constantly be updating. And if you'd like to learn more, don't delay. Pick up the phone. Give them a call today, 800-913-SAFE. Again, that number, 800-913-7233. Or online anytime. It's safemoneyretirement.com. Again, the website is safemoneyretirement.com. So, Tim, I know we talk about a guaranteed income on this show quite often, and we know it can come in several forms. Whether it's Social Security, maybe you're lucky enough to have a pension, maybe you've got an annuity or treasury. But Morningstar's Christine Benz recently said people often put a higher type of priority on this type of income. Take a listen.
To the extent that they have non-portfolio income coming in, they tend to be more comfortable spending it. They give themselves more license to spend, which to me translates into a little bit of a happiness dividend. If you're not worried about the spending that you're doing, you're just going to be more comfortable and happy in retirement. So I think that's an important finding, that people who have more guaranteed income do tend to be a bit comfier and happier in retirement.
All right, so Tim, let's talk about it. Obviously, we know income's so important when you walk away from the 9 to 5. In your opinion, though, how much retirement income ideally should be coming from those types of guaranteed sources?
Well, first, I'm going to say Christine was absolutely right. I mean, I preach that. I mean, she literally was preaching to the choir there. 100%. But how much should come from guaranteed sources? All that you need to cover your expenses. That's what I call your floor, okay? So you need a floor, and that's why when I'm doing a fact finder, literally the first thing that I ask for in the fact finder, literally the very first thing after I make sure I've got dates of birth and, that kind of garbage, and we're getting into the numbers, is what's your expenses? That's one of the very first things, and I want everything. I mean, if you give to the church, or what's your annual taxes for your home, or whatever, if it's coming out of your money, we need to know that. We need to know what those expenses are, because that's what the floor of income needs to be. And then the very next question is, okay, we know that's your floor. We've got to have that much income, period, no matter what. And we need to plan for inflation with that. We know that. Okay, here's the next question. How much do you want to make? And that's what I say. Do you want an extra $500 a month, $1,000 a month, whatever? How much extra do you want every single month to go do those fun things, to go on the trips with the grandkids to Disney, to take your wife on that trip to Ireland you've always wanted to do, or whatever it is? So to answer your question, Kevin, how much should be in guaranteed income? Enough to make sure, at least at minimum, that we've covered your expenses for the rest of your life, and we have planned for inflation so you can continue to cover your expenses. Because she was spot on. When you know that you've got that money coming in, it makes it so much easier to spend. And that goes back to something you and I have talked about before, not overliving or underliving your retirement. You don't want to underlive your retirement and not feel like you can take that trip with the grandkids, or you can go on that golf trip with your buddies, or whatever. If you've got another check coming next month, and if you spend the one this month, it's coming next month. And then if you spend that one, it's coming the month after. She's absolutely right. I hear that all the time. And my clients are just as happy as they can be once they turn the income on, because they know it's great. And especially if you get more than you need, and I've got some clients that we set up to where they're actually making more in retirement than they were when they were working.
Wow.
Imagine that. Now you've got all of your time. You can do what you want. And I'm not saying travel all the time. I'm not saying you need to be a nomad, but you can find what you want to do. What are you passionate about? Is it homeless children, or is it, something at your church, or is it, find something you're passionate about in retirement. Now you've got enough income. You can go on trips if you want to. You can do what you want to, but now you can, devote that last chapter of your life, that second half of the game, to something you're passionate about, and not just to the job that you have to go to.
Yeah, we talk about it all the time. It's one thing to have the income plan. You also want to have that spending plan to go along with it. You don't want to over or under live your retirement. And that's exactly why Tim Wood and the team at Safe Money Retirement, they are here, and they bring this show to you each and every week, helping you put that plan in place for your retirement. If you'd like to learn more, you'd like to sit down, maybe just have that 15, 20-minute conversation with Tim Wood, well, don't delay. Again, I know a lot of folks out there procrastinating. Something you'll take care of later. Well, guess what? The holidays are right around the corner. And then before you know it, we're turning the calendar to a brand new year. Stay in front of it. Stay on top of it. And again, if you have a plan in place, you'd like to revisit it and update that plan, pick up the phone. Give Tim Wood and his team at Safe Money Retirement a call today. 800-913-SAFE. Again, the number is 800-913-7233. The website is safemoneyretirement.com. And don't forget, folks, for our first 5 callers from today's show, Tim's not only going to put together a complimentary initial consultation for you with absolutely no obligation, but he's throwing in a copy of his book. It's also called Safe Money Retirement as well. So don't delay. Again, that website, safemoneyretirement.com. Well, Tim, time flies when we're having fun. Another great show here today. And before we do run out of time, I'd like to leave the floor all yours, sir, for the final word.
All right. Thanks, Kevin. It was a great show. Hope everyone enjoyed today. A couple things I want you to take from today. Number one, we just talked about that audio from Christine from Morningstar. Absolutely 100% incredibly important. Make sure that you've got enough income to cover the floor. That we know. But the biggest thing I want people to take away today is the Fed did just lower the rates. And that's how we kind of started the show off today, is talking about the Fed lowering the rate. It does have effects over everything. So the rates at, banks and credit unions are going to start going down. The rates on growth annuities are going to go down. I've already got a ton of emails from rates going down because of the Fed lowering the rate. And guess what? If they keep lowering it like the president says they're going to, those rates are going to keep going down, everyone. If you want to get into a growth plan and lock it in, now is the time before potential more rate cuts are coming in the very near future. And if the president gets his way, they could be large. And as soon as that happens, that changes the rates. I mean, literally in some cases the next day. So make sure you're prepared. If you've got a pension, make sure you realize that as rates lower, your lump sum goes up, and talk to someone about what's going to be the best option when you actually do retire. Should you turn on the pension, or is there a better option? Now's the time to do that. Now's the time to make a plan so you can have your own safe money retirement.
The preceding information does not represent tax, legal, or investment advice. Obviously, by contacting us now, you are only taking the first step towards protecting your retirement. No information presented today should be acted upon without meeting with a qualified, licensed insurance professional. It is important that you read all insurance contract disclosures carefully before making a purchase decision. Interest and other guarantees in annuity contracts are subject to the claims-paying ability of the insurance carrier that issued the contract. The tax consequences of annuity income should be considered with the help of a licensed tax professional. Rates and returns mentioned on this program may vary based on state availability and are subject to change without notice.